What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Taurean Reloaded channel. If you are new, please be sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Also, be sure to have the bell clicked on here so you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video or go live. Also, be sure to have your notifications set to all on your mobile devices. Like, comment, and share this content on your various social media platforms. So I was just scrolling through on my Twitter page and I came across this post that it wasn't tagged to me, it was retweeted on my page, and I just came across it and it literally caught my eye. And it was from this person named Mark Osagueda, and I believe they say he's a professor of history at Brown University. And he was posting up about the National Museum of African American History and Culture, which of course you know is the museum in DC. And I've actually been there before. I remember going there around the time when it first opened up a few years ago. And it's a huge museum, and they're constantly adding things in there all the time, but it looks like they're about to add something else in here as well. So according to this post that he made, it says the National Museum of African American History and Culture is hiring a museum specialist, a curatorial assistant for Latinx studies. The salary range is $74,950 to $97,430 per year. Applications close on August the 12th, 2022. Huh? Why in the world is there a Latinx studies at a museum that's for Black history or Black American history in particular? See, they had to find a way to shoehorn that Anne Brown in there somewhere with the Black. And what's even interesting about this post is if you scroll down, it says who can reply. People who at Professor Osagueda can reply. Basically, the people went into the comment section and went in and like they should have when it came to the post. So he basically had to make it where only people who he mentioned can actually reply. But see, a lot of people ended up getting a hold of this tweet and replying to him way before he was able to turn it off because they was going crazy in the comment section, as they should have. But there they go again, having to insert something like, what does that have to do with Black people? If the Latinos want to have a museum talking about their history, then get someone from their community to build them a museum, and then they can have all types of history about themselves in the museum. That museum in DC is supposed to be and is meant for Black history, specifically Black American history. It shouldn't be shoehorning anybody else in, period. Where is this coming from? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the usajobs.gov site, and we're going to look up these requirements or the duties of this particular position. So as you can see right here, it says this job is open to the public. Clarification from the agency: the position is open to all U.S. citizens or U.S. nationals. More than one selection may be made from this announcement. Now let's scroll down and look at the duties. The museum specialist assists the members of the Office of Curatorial Affairs, or OCA, National Museum of African American History and Culture, or the NMAAHC, working on U.S. Latinx initiatives, programs, and projects. And from what I've heard from people who are in the Latino community on several occasions, is they don't like that Latinx terminology. Almost like how we reject or are starting to or have been rejecting African American and picking up FBA. A lot of them do not like the Latinx terminology either. That's another one of those I guess that one of them terminologies that someone in their community came up with that they didn't like, or maybe someone who was white came up with and threw a label on them as well. But a lot of them said they don't like it. It says in this position, you will assist staff with research, collections, development, including acquisitions, documentation, and management, exhibition, development, public service, and programming centered on the U.S. Latinx experience, which includes U.S. Afro-Latina Latinx. I don't see, even the more I'm saying it, I don't like it. And I'm not even in that group. Why don't they just say Latino? It's because you know what it is, because they think that certain things will offend people when a lot of times it doesn't. So they think that, oh, if we think it offends you, then we'll just go ahead and change it, even if it doesn't offend. It says which includes U.S. Afro Latinx people, art, history, and culture. conduct research on topics, themes, graphic images, and objects within the Smithsonian, outside museums, private collections, universities, libraries, and other cultural and educational organizations associated with the U.S. Latino or Latina or X history, art, and culture, conduct, provenance, research. You know what's so crazy? All these duties that they're listing, they could literally have their own museum and throw this position into that museum. Why is this position being shoehorned into a museum about Black Americans? I mean, let's think logically here. Focus on proper and up-to-date identification and documentations of the collection, records, monitor requests, and for conversation needs and storage of collections, objects, monitor the quality and accuracy of cataloging, and assist staff with physical cataloging of objects as needed, and ensure digital object records are accurate, timely, and complete. Prepare written documents for use in exhibitions, the museum's websites, educational purposes, and acquisitions. Work with relevant staff to manage communications with vendors and donors. Work on teams with Office of Curatorial Affairs and other NMAAHC and Smithsonian staff to develop, encourage, and facilitate uses for U.S. Latinx collection information content. And this is just the qualifications right here. These are pretty much basic qualifications that a lot of other jobs and whatnot we'll talk about, but I just wanted to go over the duties. Like I said, they could have easily taken all of this and put it into a museum that they could have had built from themselves, not shoehorn it into a museum that's already established for a particular group of people. See, like I said, we can never have anything that's just for us. They got to throw every other group in there somehow, some way, and they just love to do that whole black and brown thing. But I think there's something else that I came across as well that even sounds worse and supersedes this. So check this out. This is on their website. It says the National Museum of African American History and Culture presents American history through an African American lens. Latinx history is American history, and the NMAAHC is committed to collecting, documenting, interpreting, and preserving Latinx history and culture as an integral part of that American story. Why? Why is it the Black Museum's job to preserve the history and culture of another community when they could collect all the culture and get their own museum and build it up on their own? This is exactly why right here, why Tariq is building or working on that museum right now. Because someone has got to have something that's specifically for us and just for us. Like, where did this come from? I need to know who spoke with who to let this come into play. Because I'm curious. Because this wasn't something they just decided overnight to do. This was something that was in the works for a while, but they're just now putting it out there. And the way we found out is because they put out a job posting on usajobs.gov. If it wasn't for that, we would probably never know. This would cause stuff going on behind the scenes. Let me continue reading. Black history is globally created and globally impactful. A shared legacy of the transatlantic slave trade connects the histories and cultures of the United States, Latin America, and the Caribbean. When I read that part and they were talking about the transatlantic slave trade, all I keep thinking about is, don't you dare for 1 second think that when we get our tangibles, you're going to get a cut of it. That's the first thing that came to my mind. Let's think about this for a second. How many, I would say, Latinos of today, of the last few years as a collective talk about the transatlantic slave trade? Because when it comes to the transatlantic slave trade, we know it's mainly, the main focal point is Black people. When it comes to talking about enslavement and chattel slavery, we think of Black people. You don't really think of any other group. At least the enslavement of Black people here in America. I don't know. I can't speak for any other group because slavery was in a lot of places. But here it was dealing with people who look like you and I, in particular those who are foundational to this land. Because I had to throw that in there because a lot of people that look like us, that ain't us, if you know what I mean. All skin folk ain't kinfolk. Further, Latinx's and Latin Americans, I'm sorry, I skipped part. A shared legacy of the transatlantic slave trade connects the histories and cultures of the United States, Latin America, and the Caribbean. Further, Latinx's and Latin Americans, black and non-black, have historically contributed to and have been shaped by African American culture, including performing arts, music, literature, sports, and political movements. That's probably the one true thing that they put in this entire thing, was the acknowledgement that, where is it at? That their culture has been shaped by our culture. Like what I always tell people, that black people, especially FBA, are the trendsetters of the world. When we say something is nice and good, it's just that. But when we're tired of it and it's dull and boring, then everyone else follows suit. So that statement right there is probably one of the only true things that they put in everything that I've read so far. Conversely, African Americans have influenced Latinx and Latin American art, history, and culture as well. Articulating these connections across the African diaspora affirms Black American history as multicultural and inclusive. I'm getting tired of that word too, of Latinx experiences. Listen, this sounds all whatever and fluffy, heartwarming to some, but I see the writing on the wall. Point being, this should not be included into a museum that's specifically targeting and aimed at Black American history and culture, because now it's going to become tainted. And like I said, this is not me shunning anyone else's culture. Everyone has their own culture. However, have your culture separate from ours. Yes, you can say that we influenced and everything like that. And as nice and as true as that is, we still don't have to have it in this museum. Build your own infrastructure and put your culture into it. And you won't have to worry about us trying to shoehorn our stuff in there saying, oh, well, Black people help shape your culture, so we're going to put our stuff right here and we're going to have a little corner in your museum. No, we're not going to do that. We don't have to do that. It's no need. I mean, it's blatantly obvious. But this ain't it. I do not agree, and I'm sure a lot of you who are watching this do not agree that that this is what they're doing. And it's not even what they plan on doing, it's what they're doing. They have a job literally out there for someone to get hired to make good money, because that's good money. $74,000 to $97,000 a year. That's almost a six-figure job. And that's just starting out. So yeah, but still, this is this, like I said, the whole thing is set up as nice, but just don't do it at this museum. Have your own museum and take all of this and put that into that museum. That is all I'm saying. That is all many of us are saying. But oh no, that would be too much like rice. So let's just go ahead and slip ourselves in here and plant ourselves here. And I wonder if it's because they see the success of what that museum has had, because it's a big tourist attraction. So a lot of people go there every single day. So they said, let's just go ahead and slip ourselves in. And here's the thing. This is the trick bag. You slip yourself in there in just a little bit, and then before you know it, they'll be slipping some more and more stuff in there, to the point where you can go to the museum today and it looks one way. You can go a year from now, hell, even 6 months from now, after this job is posted, and it's like, what is this? What is this? Like I said, we as Black people, especially Black American Foundation of Black Americans, we have to get into the art of gatekeeping our stuff. Because for far too long, that's one major thing that has hindered us, is the fact that we don't know how to gatekeep our stuff. And don't listen to them scared Negroes that try to, say or try to sway you into the direction of, well, you shouldn't be selfish. You could shit. No, F that. I don't feel like sharing, and neither should you. All this sharing is why we don't have much of our culture left in the first place. Truth be told. But yeah, the execution of this is what is okay, is decent, but no, not in this museum. You find some land and you get your Latino, Latin leaders together, and y'all build your own museum. After all, many of you in that community claim that y'all are more hardworking than we are. So put that hard work to the test and build that museum up. But put all that culture that you want to put into this museum into that one. Because as far as I'm concerned, if you're so hardworking and then you're putting your so-called hard work and culture into a museum that's been established for the last, I guess, 5 years now, it's still in its infancy stages. That's not hard work to me. That's being cheap. That's taking the lazy way out. Because you're inserting yourself into something that's already been established. And then try to link it to our history. Granted, some of it has some links, but it's not all the way there. I mean, it's been a huge divide for quite some time now. So I see the trick bag. I see the word play, but it's not going to fly.